Good morning. It is Friday morning. We are tearing into some UI. The important thing in Tetramino is that players are under a lot of cognitive stress, and signaling information to them can be difficult because of that. So the way that things are shown in the UI is quite important because they don't have a lot of free time to have a look and see what's going up and read things in the UI. So we're going to fix some problems we're having there. So the elementary principle here is Tetramino runner starts. Every single run, every player starts in the same spot. So they start here. And then if along this axis we have some distance traveled at, so let's say that we start a run on beginner difficulty. What that means is that you will, at run start, you will be on beginner difficulty, and then at certain distance thresholds, your difficulty will update. So let's say at 200 meters, you go to intermediate, and then at 400, you go to expert, and then at 600, the game space changes to prodigy. I don't know, 200, 500, 600, just for example. So with each of those steps, there's some new mechanics or new environmental elements or some such that's introduced. The mechanic that's introduced in Prodigy is particularly challenging from a UI perspective because it is quite a significant and unique thing in the play space that's been layered on that hasn't been before that. So there's no real chance to tutorialize it before that because it's just not in the game yet. And I'm not a believer in telling players about things that are coming in the future. You know, it's they should just have enough to be looking at in the now. So when we get to Prodigy, we start adding run modifiers. So every 100 meters after you hit Prodigy, you get a little run modifier added to the game, and it'll add 3 of these, and then as it adds the 4th one, it'll remove the first one and cycle so that then it's then these 3, and there's just always 3 in a first in first out rotation. There's always 3 active. I need to be able to signal to the player when these come into play and have some way of them checking what they do if they're not familiar with the iconology yet, which obviously they'll learn over time because it's pretty straightforward and there's only 10 or 11 different modifiers. So it's not a long-term problem, it's just a short-term problem. We need to show people, here's the new one that's active, and they need to be able to check in some kind of stress-free way. They need to be able to check, what does that one do? Currently, when you pause the game, it will give you a rundown of what run modifiers are active. That doesn't really help you when you're in-game. If a new one is being activated, it doesn't really help you to know which ones are active currently. You want to know what this new one that's just been added is. So that will be today's work. Currently in the UI, there's just these little block icons here, and those block icons are the mods. My plan is that when a new one comes into play, the icon will bounce up here really big and then shrink down into the row and become the little run modifier icon in the row. That's the plan. UI always has all kinds of adventures and surprises waiting. So we'll see how we go. The beginner and intermediate and expert signaling is relatively good. So the reason why I have a focus on this Prodigy signaling right now is that it rounds out the game loop because I do have the beta build deadline coming up. So it's important that the core functionality here for someone to actually play it is all sound. And Prodigy is the last thing on that list because it's the most recent addition to the game. So onward.